Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Now let us start our biology class, and the topic we are going to discuss today is fundamental unit of life. So before we understand the facts about it, we must know what this fundamental stands here for and which unit is considered as a fundamental unit of life. So basically, fundamental is it is with respect to the basic unit. So this basic unit is a cell. So now in this session or in this chapter, we are going to study about the details of the cell, how it is discovered, and what is the role of the cell in a life. So this unit, cell, it is actually defined as the basic structural and functional unit of life. You can see here, this is the diagram of an animal cell. If we try to observe the structure of the cell or the cross section of a cell is going to appear something like this. Now these are the parts which are present inside, and definitely we are going to study about each and every part shown in this particular diagram. For example, the mitochondria, for example, the centrioles, endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus, etc. All these parts are present within the unit cell. Now, we are saying that this unit cell, it is a basic, structural and functional unit of life. Can you imagine something now? This particular basic unit, how it is appearing here in this particular diagram. A boundary which is enclosing several different parts inside. Now, can you compare it with the structure of a complete organism? Exactly. Any animal you can compare. Since it is an animal cell, you can compare it with the animal itself. You have seen many animals in your surrounding. But, do you really think they appear like this unit? No. But, the fact is that so many such kind of units, they are actually providing that structure to the animal, to an animal. The millions or billions of cells, they all unite, they perform the various kind of functions, and thus they are resulting in the functional living organism, and that we are calling as an animal. But the base or the foundation on what that structure has been constructed, that is the role, or that is actually the contribution of this particular unit, that is cell. So this is the reason why we are calling a cell as a structural unit. Why? Because it is providing the entire structure to organ or to an organism. Secondly, it is known as a functional unit of life. Can you think why is this so? The reason is that all the metabolic reactions takes place within this particular cell. What do you mean by metabolism? Now at this point, you must understand what this word refers to. So metabolism is basically a set of all biochemical reactions taking place within the body or the cell. Metabolic reactions, or in general you must have studied in your chemistry that what a reaction means. There are different components, they are reacting with each other, and they are resulting in the formation of some new compound. Now in this way we can say either it is breaking down, a complex molecule is breaking down into a simpler one, or several simple units, they are uniting together, they are forming a bond within themselves, and they are resulting in the formation of a complex molecule. So in a living system, how the functions are going on? Definitely, some reactions are taking place and they are resulting in the favorable products. Some may be excretory, they will be released out of the body. Some are useful and they will be utilized by the body itself. So such reactions which are taking place here in the cell, they all are known as metabolic reaction, and the process is known as metabolism. Now as we have discussed these reactions, either they can result in the formation of a complex substance from simpler. So such type of constructive biochemical reactions, they are known as anabolic reaction, and the process is known as anabolism. Besides, there are other reactions which are actually breaking down several complex molecules into the simpler ones. So, such type of reactions, such type of destructive type of reactions, they are known as catabolic reaction, and the process is known as catabolism. So finally, this particular process, that is metabolism, it is a set of both these particular processes or the reactions. Now, why we have given stress over these reactions? The reason is because such metabolism, they are actually helping in the survival of a living organism. And where these reactions are taking place? They are taking place within the cell. So such type of reasons actually make scientists to call this unit as a functional unit of life. So it's very clear that why this cell is called as a structural and functional unit of life. Basic, definitely, because the life it starts from the cell itself, or an organism starts its life as a cell only. Or in short, we can say it is a foundation of any living organism. So we are calling this unit cell as a basic structural and functional unit of life. So whenever we have to define this cell and whenever we have to describe the basic property behind the cell, then we have to use these four words essentially in any definition of cell: basic, structural, functional, and unit. Because each and every word here is having a specific reason. Further, all organisms, they all are made up of cells. There is no organism which is not having a cell. If cell is not there, then the organism could not be called as a living thing. Whatever living thing is there in our surrounding, they have to be made up of cells only. Further, although all these organisms, they all are made up of cells, but you can see they all are not identical. They all are not same. They are different from each other. So, how do these organisms differ? They differ from each other structurally as well as functionally. So, we have seen the diagram initially, the unit of cell, that is animal cell. Now, although it is forming a foundation for all kind of living organisms, but as this organism is a complex system, then definitely all these complexity has to be sought out by these cells only. So, depending on that, they are varying from each other structurally. Similarly, as there are many functions which are played by these cells within the body or within the organism or a living system, then they are different from each other in terms of their function also. We can just brief this thing with a very small example here. You can see, let us suppose there is a cell, let us say it is a nerve cell. You must be very much familiar. You all know how it appears. You are studying it since long. So therefore we are quoting it a very small diagram here. So you can see how the appearance of this little cell is there. It is something like this. There is a body, central body, and then there is a tail-like structure. At the end they are having several fibers. There is a nucleus inside. So this is a rough diagram of a nerve cell. What is the function of nerve cell? It is transport of message, the communication. It is called as a control unit or the unit which participates in the coordination between various parts of the body. So as entire body has to be communicated, and you know what could be the size of a body. So if we have to communicate at such a long distance, then can you imagine how a small cell can do that function? So in that case, these nerve cells, they are provided with a specific structure. That is, this special structure is observed. a tail-like, which we call as axon. So this axon is actually meant for the communication, and this is why this long tail-like structure is present here. Now let us imagine another structure here, that is sperm, a head region which is provided with a tail. Now this tail provides motility, and it is a very small cell. We can say, if we say it is a human being, then it is the smallest cell present inside the human being. So these sperms actually they participate in the reproduction processes. And what is its job here? The function is to transfer these characteristics of a male from male body to the zygote in the female body. So this is why they are having such a small structure, and secondly they are provided with the tail so as to provide it motility. Now you can see that how these cells within the body they differ from each other. Now in this sentence we have said that organisms they differ structurally and functionally. Now within the system we have compared two cells here. Now if we compare the cells, let us say sperms or the nerve cells, whatever, if we compare them with the other organisms, that means let us say for example a nerve cell of a human being, of a dog and a cat and an insect or whatever. Let us say if we compare different organisms, same type of cell, then they will be having different structure. Basic structure would be something like this, but the property, the features are going to be different. Of course, and this is why they are having a little bit different extent of function in the system. You can imagine at this point, let us say a sense of smell, this power for smelling anything, it is highest in case of dog. And if we compare the same cell in any other organism, let us say a human being, then there is a difference. What those dogs can smell and find out the things, we don't have that power. This gives us a clear idea that how these cells they differ from each other within the organism as well as within the different organisms also. But the basic fact is of course true. And what is that? They all are still made up of cells only. So although these organisms they are made up of cells, but still they differ from each other in terms of various aspects. Further, these cells they are actually responsible to carry out basic functions of the body. Can you imagine what these basic functions are? Like nutrition, the process by which we obtain our food, or plants synthesize their food. So this photosynthesis, that means synthesis of their own food, or the things that we are consuming as a food, it has to be digested further. So where it is actually digesting, what are those things which helps in such type of processes? So such functions, they are taking place in the body in the form of metabolic reactions, and these metabolic reactions are the function of the cells, and this is the reason why we are calling it as a functional unit of life. Now the thing is how this cell was observed for the first time. So now let us study about the discovery, how the cell was discovered. So this discovery actually occurred in year 1665. It has been a long time now. And who discovered? It was Sir Robert Hooke. He was the first scientist, and he was the first person to observe these small units. Although he was not, he didn't get a clear defined structure, but it was the first time that he observed that there are some units in the body which are actually constituting the structure. And he was the one to give this particular name, cell, to this particular basic unit. Now how he did this job? Actually he observed the slices of some cork. You know what is this cork? It is, you can say, a hard dead skin which is present over the bark of the trees. So he took a small section of that bark region, which we are calling it as a cork here, and he just observed it under a simple magnifying device. He observed it under the lens, and he magnified the image, and when he observed this magnified image, he found that there were several partitioned boxes, or there were that this particular cork, it was having the compartments in the body, in its structure. So this is how he found that the structure or the object which appears so dead and rough and hard is actually made up of so many partition boxes or the compartments. He observed that there is a boundary line, and so many such boundary structures having boundary, they were present so close to each other, and thus they are having appearance of a, like we can say, as a honeycomb. We can show you this picture here. It was the one which was observed by him in 1665. These are the dead cork cells as appeared under the primitive microscope designed by Sir Robert Hooke himself. So you can see these compartments, small picture, these small boxes here, which are separated from each other by the boundary line. To be more clear, we can just use your pen, and you can observe they were looking like something this. You must have made such designs in your artistic book or something. So these are having such structures. And these compartments, he called them as small little rooms, and these rooms further they were coined the name cell. This is a structure, it is a picture of compound microscope. Nowadays we can observe the structure of the cell with the help of this type of microscope. Nowadays we are using this particular microscope in our labs. Further, this Sir Hooke, we said that he coined the term cell. He called those boxes as cell. Now do you know why he called them as cell? The reason is that this particular word cell is derived from the Latin word celluli, and this word, it means a little room. So he called them as compartments or the little rooms, and therefore he called these cell units as cell over there. Cell is the plural of this particular word. Now let us go through a brief history of cell. As we said, Sir Robert Hooke, he was the first person to study about these things. These cells. Sir Robert Hooke, year 1665. He discovered the cell and coined this particular name to such a structure, and details we have gone through just now. Now later, the microscope which was used by Robert Hooke, it was so simple. It was of a primitive kind. So later, Sir Hooke, he discovered the new compound microscope, and then he used this particular microscope, the picture as we have shown in the previous slide. So that microscope was discovered by Hooke, and by using this microscope, he actually studied the various cells in the pond water. He collected the pond water. You know, pond water, it is somehow, we can say, a little bit dirty. So he just collected that pond water, and he put a small drop of that sample of water over the slide, and then he observed it under the microscope. So in the microscope he found there are certain motile bodies. That means under the slide several small units were just waving from one side to the another. They appeared and they disappeared. They come and they move to another side. So he called those small bodies or those small structures as the living cells, because he can observe them multiplying too. And thus he was the first person to observe the bacterial cells in the pond water. Thus he discovered the bacteria. Later, in 1678, he also discovered the sperms in human beings, in dogs, in cats, and in some other organisms. And he observed, he just actually compared the sperms of different such organisms. Thus he said that although these units are made up of cell, but they are having somewhat little differences also. So sperms are present in all these structure or the organisms, but the function, morphology and anatomy is different. This is how Leeuwenhoek contributed in the field of cell biology. Later, in 1831, Sir Robert Brown, he gave a very broad contribution in the field of cytology by discovering the nucleus. He was the first person to observe the plant cells and identify the centrally located structure in the plant cells, and he called that central unit as a nucleus. He was not knowing what was the role of this nucleus, but when he observed, each time he found that there is a centrally, or there is a small unit which is present in the plant cell, and this particular unit is known as nucleus. Later, in 1839, Sir J.E. Purkinje, he discovered the living matter of the cell, that is protoplasm. What is protoplasm? We are continuously saying that metabolic reactions are taking place in the cell, but where, how, what is present inside the cell that supports such type of functions. So that living matter is in the form of how we can say a matrix or a jelly substance, and that type of substance is called as the living matter of the cell. If we just say, let us say if the nucleus is not separated by the boundary, then in that case such type of matter would be known as cytoplasm. So J.E. Purkinje, he found that protoplasm is present in the cell, which is basically a living matter. And definitely later on so many studies were continued so as to find out the function of these protoplasm. That's why it is called as a living matter. Further, Sir Haeckel in 1866, he actually studied about the nucleus more and more, and he found that what is the basic function of the nucleus. So basically the nucleus, what Sir Haeckel discovered was that these nucleus, they are not a simple body present within the cell, rather they are the storage house. They are the storage site for the hereditary unit of life. That means nowadays we know that which is the hereditary unit? Genes. These genes are transferred from one or a generation to the next generation, and the characteristics are further provided. But where these genes are located within the cell, that was actually observed by Sir Haeckel. So he said that nucleus is the unit in which the hereditary units are actually stored. Not only this much, these units are also transmitted during a reproduction process. So this was the function of the nucleus as discovered by the Haeckel. What is that? It is storage of hereditary unit, that is genes, and secondly the function is to transmit these particular hereditary units from one generation to the another. And what these units are? They are genes. So basically he found the location of these particular units in the living cell. Further, in 1838, Sir Jacob M. Sheldon, he found that he studied the plants, and he said that all these plants are made up of cells. He was a great botanist. He has actually contributed a lot in the field of botany. But the major thing here is plants, they are made up of cells. Later on, Sir Schwann in 1839, he said that not only plants but all animals are also made up of cells. And thus these two people together contributed, they actually concluded that cell is the basic structural unit of life. And this is what he proposed in his cell theory. So what this cell theory actually is saying here, it suggests that all the living systems, whether it is a plant or an animal, they all are made up of basic structural unit, that is cell. And this is what the cell, and this work, whatever was described under further, it contributed to the cell theory. And he therefore suggested the cell theory in the system. Later on, the cell theory was modified, and the work which was done for such modification was a part of contribution given by Sir R. Virchow. So this Virchow in 1855, he actually proposed modern cell theory. He studied these facts which were given by Schilden and Schwann in the same period, in the same era, and then he just mixed up his own work along with the cell theory and just modified it. So what this particular modern cell theory says here, it suggests the following points. This is the points which were given by the modern cell theory. Number 1, all organisms are made up of cell. Now don't get confused. The same point was given by Sir Schilden and Sir Schwann. But what Virchow said, that organisms are made up of cell. This is true. But one more additional thing is there. And what is it? That they are made up of cell, not only cell, but also the cell products. So can you justify this particular point here? Why we are saying it? All organisms are made up of cell. This is what we are studying since the beginning of the session. But from where the cell products have come here now? What the products are they? So basically, it is not necessary that all the reactions which are taking place within the cell and the products which are being formed, they will stay within the cellular unit. No, they will come out of these cells, they will diffuse out, they will be transported to the target site, or in the surrounding region, in the fluid surrounding the cells, these products may reside. For example, blood. It is a liquid connective tissue. Now cells are present, but in the blood we can see that they are having other structures also, like various proteins, like hemoglobin and so on. Many things are there. From where these proteins are coming? From where these hemoglobin are coming? So now we can say that these are basically produced by the cells only. And second point, the second aspect here. Can you imagine that if blood is only made up of cells and there is no hemoglobin, if this organism can survive now? No. So this is just one of the example. If we compare different types of organisms, we can compare different cell products also. So this is why he modified the point, and he said that organisms are not only made up of cells but the cell products too. Now the next point, what he suggested in his own theory is that the cells, they are not only the basic structural unit, but also they are the functional unit of life. The reason is very clear that we have studied already, and it is that all these cells or all the metabolic reactions are taking place within this functional unit. Next point here, that all cells, they arise from the pre-existing cells. There is no magic to bring these cells on the earth in the living condition. Rather, they are arising by the multiplication of the existing cells only. And the new type of cells or organisms, they can evolve by various kind of variations within these particular cells. But it is never possible that cells, they can be generated from anywhere, air, soil, water or something. No, they can be generated from the pre-existing cells only. Next point is that each organism begins its life as a single cell only. Can you think what this single cell here means? Now this single cell is nothing but it is the zygote. This you must have studied many number of times, that these organisms during reproduction, what happens? They fuses these germ cells, sperm and the ovum. As a result, a fused cell is being produced, and that fused cell is known as zygote. Further, the zygote will start multiplying. This multiplied form of cells, they will start differentiating, and the perfect structure would be arriving. So, any organism, initially at the first moment of its life, it was merely a single cell. So now you can imagine how these points were actually observed and studied by Sir R. Virchow. These facts made him to seriously modify the points, and thus there came into being the modern cell theory. Now further we will study that how they vary from each other, these cells, how they vary from each other, and how they are actually similar also. Variation is of course on the basis of its structure, shape, size, function. Further, we can say that the difference similarity is in terms of its basic structure. So all these we are going to continue in the next session. Till then, study well, go through it. Thank you so much. We'll meet you soon in the next session. Till then, goodbye.